Daniel, we're back.
We are.
It's just the two of us today. Adam is sick. I was gonna make
He's
a
day to
hockey
day.
joke. I was gonna make a hockey
No,
joke.
okay.
It didn't come out right the way I wanted it to, so I skipped past it.
Okay.
But yeah, Daniel is day to day, or Adam is day to day.
Adam is day
My
to
God.
day. Yeah.
He's sick, but he should be back Sunday, hopefully.
Mhm.
But Daniel, how are you?
You know what? I'm okay. Yeah, long work day, but like I don't know. Are you feeling this? I don't know if you are because you're more of a focused, concentrated guy that I am.
Oh,
But
okay. No, I wouldn't
yeah,
agree with that at all, but let's go with it.
but it's that time of the year where baseball's picking up.
Yeah.
Basketball and hockey. Basketball's in playoffs. Hockey is about to go into the playoffs, and I'm really distracted with the amount of games that are on each night from all three sports that I love.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like, we're kind of coming down to, and we're coming down to the end of the season in soccer too, where the leagues over in Europe are coming to an end. Formula One literally just started. MLS just started. Like literally, it's so good all at once. It's an exciting time. You brought up the Raptors, and I feel like I know we're a hockey podcast. We're going to get to the hockey. There's stuff to talk about, but I do have to ask about the Raptors. They're now down 2-0. Honestly, by the time this podcast comes out, it could be 3-0. It could be 2-1 in the series. Daniel, I've watched it. I didn't get to watch the entire second game, but I saw parts of it. What happened?
I don't know. They just couldn't keep the momentum. I think, game one, we had all the jokes. They lose. They always lose game one, no matter what. It's a Toronto tradition. Game two, they had the momentum in the first quarter and they just didn't hold on. They kind of let everything slide in a way. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people who say that there's many reasons for this. And I'm one of them where I say, yes, the calls were imbalanced. I didn't believe in the calls, the amount of free throws, what was going on there. And I think it's just the third thing too that I've seen online is the cynicism of things that we all know it. Alex, you know it.
Yeah.
We loved 2019.
We do.
Yes, we do. But it's a new team, and I don't know. I'm just kind of I'm on the side of things where I'm like, it was fun, it was great, but there's no Marc Gasol guarding Joel Embiid this time. And we just have to accept it. We just have to accept it. And I know there's no Kawhi Leonard going on either, but I think like at first I was kind of down in the dumps where I'm like, oh, 2-0. These were really bad losses. And I don't know what to think of it right now, but two things that's keeping me going. Milwaukee, they were down 2-0 in the conference finals. And also Fred VanVleet, like he's been a breath of fresh air in terms of positivity. I think he said he's not worried. He said it's the first to win 4. And I love that attitude. So that might change after tonight, depending on how things go for game 3. But I'm with Fred on this.
Right. No,
yes.
100%. You got to go with the hometown team. I wanted to ask you about this because I thought it was hilarious. And we never really see this in the NHL because it's just, the last time we really saw what I'm about to explain was like Radim Verbata walking by Kevin Bieksa on the bench, and you have Alain Vigneault just laughing behind him. There was we'll call it an interaction between Nick Nurse and Joel Embiid. And they talked about it afterward, and essentially it got down to Joel Embiid told Nick Nurse to stop complaining about the officiating. And what did you think of that interaction? Because, we do, especially in hockey, we do not see that.
Oh my gosh. That's like, okay, the way I felt there is like, if I would imagine Tom Wilson going for a hit and then in the press conference saying, listen, the game has become too dirty And I really feel like, they should be calling these types of hits more often. That's what I kind of felt. Or even I think about Jay Beagle, where
Yeah.
after that whole thing where, it was the unnecessary punches to Troy Terry, and then he at the end of the game said, there's no place for violence in this game. I'd like to shout out Lee Van Osman, by the way, our boy at the Toronto Star. He had an amazing tweet, by the way, when I think it was when people were like, what do you think Nick Nurse and Joel Embiid are speaking about?
Yeah.
And then his quotes was, Marcus Saul's on the flight to Toronto as we speak. I love that.
That is hilarious. Now I feel like we should shift back to hockey. I mean, I'm sure we could talk about the Raptors.
Well, I didn't hear yours. What's your prediction for tonight?
Oh, I mean, like I think, and who was it? I think it was Amy Audebert was on the Raptors show this afternoon, and she was talking about Philly and talking about how there really is home court advantage, especially when you're in Philly and when they're winning. And like, I wonder if we're going to see the same thing here, because I think Scotiabank Arena, during my perception, totally, but Scotiabank Arena is very different when there's a Leafs game versus when there's a Raptors
definitely,
game. I think there's more, I'll call it energy in the building, because I don't think, that the bottom bowl, the lower bowl is full of suits the way it is 99% of the time it is for Leaf games. And, I wonder if, the Raptors could use that, not to their advantage. Like I just think it's not going to, I think it could be to their advantage in a way. Just we'll find out tonight. I hope the Raptors win. I think they can.
I believe. Yes. I still believe. Even if it goes down 3-0, I will believe till the end. Until Philly gets the 4 wins, I will continue to believe.
What if Shaq was right?
I really don't. I really hope he's not right. I really hope he's not right.
Whatever. Let's not even,
because we're on the side of Ernie Johnson and Charles Barkley.
Let's not talk about them getting swept. That would not be fair. Let's shift to hockey, and obviously let's start with first. A few days ago, Mike Bossie obviously passed away at the age of 65. He was diagnosed with lung cancer back in October. So our condolences go to his family and the New York Islanders organization. That organization and their fans especially have gone through a lot recently. Obviously Mike Bossie, most recently, before that, Clark Gillies. And I think before that was Jean Potvin. And like, it's so unfortunate. 65 again is so young.
Yeah, he's still very young. Yes, of course, like our condolences to his family and his loved ones. Both of us, we were not alive in the 80s, born in the 80s. So for me, I only got to know about Mike Bossie through the books, through what was said on TV. So, part of that four-peat, one of the greatest wingers to ever play, and apparently had a good mean streak to him. Like, he had the personality before there was the personality, if that makes sense. Like, he was a guy that liked to speak out. He had, like, I just looked through it recently, the amount of quotes he had, like, he gave to the media were amazing. I think there was some where he even said, like, and this is something you expect from other sports, of he's like, oh, why am I never considered in like the top names of guys kind of thing? Or he dismissed the whole thing where he was overshadowed by the Gretzky era, because it is true where he did win the cups before Gretzky emerged. So shout out to him, shout out to the respect he had both on and off the ice. So, but again, it is very sad at 65.
Yeah. And just a couple facts I pulled out, that when it was announced, 9 straight 50-goal seasons, including 5 60-plus goal seasons, and there were 3 straight 60-plus goal seasons. His lowest goal total in 10 NHL seasons was 38, and that was during his final year. Like, that's it. I know his obviously he had a shorter career, obviously because of injuries and the like. But man, I don't think we talk about Mike Bossie enough when it comes to just straight up goal scorers, because he in his first year 50 plus goals. Like, come on. I get it, like at that time, but that is very impressive.
Yeah. So it is crazy. Like I think, and there's always the saddest things I kind of feel where we reassess, like, or we remember the legacy when they're gone. That of course he did get it, I think, within the NHL circles of things. But I think when it comes to fans or how things were covered, I think that it would have been nice for him to get a bit more of the coverage, especially in the modern times.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think the coincidence, I don't want to call it a coincidence, but like, it's crazy the series of events that were happening around the same time. He passes away the same day the Islanders were in town to face the team that he grew up cheering for, which was the Montreal Canadiens, and the city he was from. And it also happens to be the same night that Carey Price returns. And I don't think there's a better arena or stadium in it that does ceremonies like the Bell Center. And I think, like, it was just, I don't know if you happen to see it, but it was just it was just so nice to see, and of it to be in Montreal of all nights, I think was just extremely special.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing to like kind of see it. We always see it on TV, and we always get, I guess, like, we're very privileged to have Adam on the show with the season tickets. That he's our firsthand our firsthand reporter sometimes of what goes on with the Bell Center. He always talks about Fix You, always talks about how they really present things pretty well. Even when, like he said, the Kent Hughes press conference, what he really loved about it. And sometimes we really do need that when we actually get an idea of, like, these are how special the Bell Center has been able to make these types of ceremonies and events.
Yeah, 100%. And before we move on, again, condolences to the Islanders and Mike Bossie's family and loved ones. Since, it's always a rough transition.
Yeah.
And Adam always says it, but we were talking about the Habs. Let's go. We talked about, obviously, Carey Price has now played 2 games, but he played his first game against the New York Islanders. This is his first game since the 2021 Stanley Cup Finals, Game 5. That's a huge story. And he did play a second game against Minnesota last night. And I know we're definitely going to talk about it again next episode when Adam's here, but I think we got to do it justice now. How important do you think Carey Price coming back is, not just necessarily for the team, but for the fans? Because I think, they've been through a lot since, the summer, essentially, losing Philip Deneau, Shea Weber and Carey Price kind of being away from the team. And now obviously Carey Price coming back, but, losing that presence, and, the season's not starting off anywhere where they expected, to now Martin St. Louis. What do you think Carey Price coming back now means for the team and the fans?
I think for me, and we've used these cliches a lot, but the one thing I think of right away is it's the perfect bookend, I think, to this difficult season. We've mentioned that, we've been through all of it where it did not start well. It was not good for Montreal moving forward. And they realized after that they couldn't run it back with the same management. They couldn't run it back with the same type of core they had before. And they were able to fix things. The fundamental changes were there for them to get ready for what's going to be the quote unquote new hope of next year and beyond. And a lot of people have mentioned that of the bookend would necessarily be like the cliche one of they get the first overall pick, the Payne for Shane campaign for Shane Wright. And that's something that I think about. That's what you expect when a team is having a tough season. But I think for something historical for the Montreal Canadiens, especially the way they value their core players, their standout guys like Carey Price, I think it was it was a perfect it was a perfect way to show the end of the season or how things are going to conclude in the coming games of Carey Price coming back, playing for the team no matter what the result was, and just just I guess like adding on to this momentum they already had of the management changes, of changing a lot of the players, of getting more draft picks and looking towards the future for things.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you there. And I think, for the, I think for the team and also for the fans to have Carey Price come back is huge because, and I think Adam would agree here as well, that he has been the face of the franchise for over like practically a decade, maybe longer, right? So for him to kind of step away from the team, I think obviously including the three of us, it took us for surprise. But now that he's come back and it's clear he's confident, it's clear he feels he's ready to come back. And I was one of and again, I was one of the guys saying, you know what, maybe you let him finish the season. But if he feels confident to come back, then he should come back, because I think it's bigger. Carey Price coming back is bigger than the win or the loss. I do, like, I think for him to come back, unfortunately it necessarily hasn't shown in the play yet. And we'll get to that in a second, but I think him coming back is so much bigger because of what he means to the franchise. And I know obviously there's been chatter about, the future of Carey Price, the future of Carey Price. I don't want to have that conversation now. Not because I just don't think the guy just came back. I get it.
Yeah.
Like, let's have that conversation in the summer. I think the important thing now is that he came back, and, there was that question of what when he was going to come back, what he was going to look like. And I want to move away from the negativity of, what's his future with the team.
I agree. Like it's sometimes really difficult. I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of this, but just kind of always looking towards the team and say, okay, what's ahead of things? Why can't we just kind of look at the stories that are in front of us right now and just be present in the moment of things? I think that this is one of the stories that I think it's monumental. It's going to be one of the bigger stories of this season. And yeah, like I kind of feel it too. Like, I don't want to talk about, like trade scenarios, do all the things, because that's the cliche stuff. Well, it could maybe we just have the bias because we love Adam, but I feel that as well. Like, I feel that this is something that we don't have to speculate even further. It's just the guy came back. He's healthy. He did what he needed to do, and it motivated the team. I think it just gave another energy to the team of what they want to do and what they want to do moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like we should note, and I don't want to kind of sour the Carey Price return, but it not for him in particular, but the team in front of him hasn't given him much help. Obviously, they did give up like a 3-0 against the Islanders. And after last night, and yes, it's only been 2 games, but still, he has received no goal support.
No, not at all.
Even when he was heart-winning Carey Price, he still needed like a goal.
Yeah.
He needed a single goal, but he still needed the single goal. Right. So again, this is the team that it is, but it would be nice. I think Carey Price might want some goal support.
It's always been like the common thing though. I think even like when he was like in his prime, we always talked about that oh, okay, they're not scoring enough goals kind of thing. So maybe I don't know, maybe it's just a tradition thing. It's like, we're welcome back, Carey. We kept things as they were since you came back, since you last played. So welcome.
Sure. I mean, that's the best explanation that either of us could give. I don't think Adam would like it. Maybe he'd agree with it. I don't know. We'll find out.
We'll add
when
something.
he listens. When he listens, he will text us to tell us if he agrees with that assessment or not. But
we'll add something here. Well, Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield will be the goal scorers that they need in the future. So.
Oh yeah, no, they're
no.
Listen,
I'm just gonna add that. So he listens to the other part. He hears this one too.
Listen, I mean, I think I've been quite high on the Montreal Canadiens. Like even going back to last year, always Toronto's toughest opponent. For what, like just last year, it was like, come on, guys, figure this one out. It's clear. It's very clear. It's Montreal, not Edmonton. But that's besides the point. Moving on from the Habs, we're going to move into Ontario now to the Ottawa Senators. I assume you've seen the piece written in the Athletic.
Yes.
I don't know how you could have missed it, but obviously there was a Athletic piece written by Ian Mendes, Dan Robson, and Katie Strang, and it's titled. This will tell you exactly what it's about: the Eugene Melnyk era in Ottawa. Hopeful, then bizarre and tyrannical. Now there's lots to dissect here, and I beg you, if you haven't gone to read this article yet, go read it. It's actually it's a lot of information to take in at once, is the way I would put it. And it details a lot of stuff about things that were going on behind the scenes, and about a Ukrainian guy he was helping for a period of time. That relationship deteriorated. Daniel, what did you think of that piece?
It gave me a lot of context on the behind the scenes of, I guess, a lot of key moments for me, especially in my childhood, of what was going on with the Ottawa Senators. Because when I started liking hockey, that was around 2003, 2004. The Sens were a juggernaut. They were like, I wasn't around when
juggernaut?
They were a juggernaut. Yes.
Crazy.
I mean, yes. Like I wasn't around for the 90s when they were, getting the first overall pick like literally every year. I was never around for that. So for me, when coming in, like the stars were already there. Jason Spezza, Zdeno Chara, Daniel Alfredson, and then afterwards like Danny Heatley. That's what I knew the Sens as, and I just kind of knew like they were this amazing team that somehow even got the star players. Like they got Dominic Hasek for that 1 year randomly. That was crazy to me, and that to me as a kid, I assumed they're going to be spending like this every year.
Right.
And then, 2004 happens. They lose to the Leafs. Great goals from Joe Nieuwendyk. And I know in the piece even said that Eugene Melnyk said, quote, they're going to kill the Leafs in that playoff series. And then you move on to like 2007. And even though they lost like key guys in free agency, you're still able to see that this was a contending team. And then suddenly, like, what happened? Like, other than the Erik Karlsson on one foot getting them to the conference finals, like 2007 was really like their last breath, I think, of being that juggernaut team that I knew as a kid. And then I always wanted to know, like, what happened? Like, they had these high-priced guys. They had these guys who I assumed were, like, you assume that they're going to be there forever. Like a Daniel Alfredson, a Jason Spezza. You assume those types of guys are going to be there forever, but you never really give an explanation. You were never given one, actually, of what happened, and then why is it that like a lot of the veterans were either signing elsewhere or everyone was getting traded. So for me, that was something I really took from the piece.
Yeah, and 100%. And I think what it did for me was, we kept hearing of all these things that were happening with the Senators organization. Obviously, we saw Daniel Alfredson come and go twice. We saw Chris Neal come and go twice as part of the organization as a player, and then after as a part of the charity organization. And, we always heard those things. We talk about Tom Anselmi, who was there for 6 months, who was literally ran MLSE. Like I think for me, this piece put everything together, because you had all these things happening, like you were saying, whether it's on the ice or off the ice. And it's like, what's going on? Like it didn't add up. And I think this piece very much put it together. Now, saying that, obviously he did pass away. It's been not even 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And this has been, honestly, it's been very contentious with this subject. Was it the right time to publish? And I'm going to ask, I want you to answer that, but I also want to know, the sources were not willing to go on the record until now for various reasons. But do you think now was the right time to publish this story, or do you think there was a better time to publish it?
I think for me, it was just a different circumstance because, again, my condolences to him and his family. I just kind of felt that we were already in the thick of things. We were already in the deep of what was going on with the Senators, why things are being run the way they are. When we had like that speculation, and it wasn't even that long ago, of is Brady Tkachuk going to actually commit to this team long term, or is it going to be like another Mark Stone situation where? And then when we think about Mark Stone, like there's other articles too, like, oh, why didn't Jason Spezza, after he was named captain, why didn't he want to commit to the team long term? Because he signed that huge extension with Dallas after he was traded.
Right.
And for me, I think that I was just invested in already in understanding what's going on with the team and how they wanted to change that identity, because they were talking about this rebuilds being over, about having the pieces set in place. But I think I just wanted to know what was going to change in terms of the culture, in terms of what was going to happen with whether or not you're going to pay your players that you draft, because they have drafted very well the last few years. So I don't think that they're necessarily like trying to disrupt anything, but we already knew that it was an interesting legacy. I'll say it like that. It was something that you wanted to kind of know that what was really going on here, because there was the highs of highs there. And in the article, they mentioned it, of the way they spent in their cup, like towards like their finals run in 2007, right, even off the ice with those lavish parties. Those were those examples, but you just want to know, okay, where did this shift happen? And then suddenly we're back into 2021, 2022. So like they want to make another shift towards team success, but you're already like having that in the back of your head. Like, is this going to be how it was before, or is it something that's going to be different? So for me, I know that they quoted one of the reps for the Sens. I said it was insensitive for The Athletic to publish this article. But for me, there were a lot of pieces already like talking about the mixed legacy that Eugene Melnyk leaves with Ottawa.
Right. I think I do agree with you on the fact that this I believe should be published. I think it's a matter for me, and I was someone who criticized I don't remember what newspaper it was, but the publication that wrote about Quebec City and connecting it to Ottawa. And I didn't think, for especially the fans and his family, for you to be writing about that the day after. I think what I struggle with answering is, when is the right time to publish this story? Because I genuinely do believe that this is a story that should have been published at some point. For me, it's a struggle that I don't know when's the right time. Like, what's the cutoff? 6 months, a year? And like, again, like I said, when I brought up the question, it's important to remember that the sources weren't willing to go public with it until now. So saying, well, you should have published this before isn't an option. It wasn't on the table. So you have this information, and I think there's plenty of people who would be willing to hear about it, including the people who read the article. It's just I struggle with answering when's the right time. What is it? 6 months from his passing? Is it a year from his passing? That's what I struggle with. But I do believe that story should have been published at some point. And I want to ask you this final question about the Melnyk article. I'm in a way I want to make this into somewhat positive, because I think there is work that's going to be done to change the reputation of the Senators. In the story, towards the end, there was a vendor in 2019 who was they billed the Senators, and just now they were paid back in full. Now, my question is, clearly, and we've had this discussion on the podcast many times, that, there's this fractured relationship with the city of Ottawa. And I don't mean like the government, I mean the people of Ottawa and, the Sens alumni. What do you think the organization can do to, I guess, reestablish those relationships, or build a better reputation, I think, within the city? Because I think right now it is a little fractured, and I don't think that's wrong to say. I think that was evident before his passing, and I think it's just as evident now.
I think because we always talk about team culture and what you want to foster in the city. We've mentioned it before, and this is from my own personal experience as well. When I was at U of T, I was part of this was when I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I was part of the mock trial team for the school, and we traveled to Carleton, and I was there for several days. And I think this is coming from when I was really young. You just don't give away Leafs tickets. You don't give away Leafs tickets, or you don't pay less than $100 for Leafs tickets. And I remember there were just so many people I was meeting there, really nice people in Carleton. And then people were just like saying, hey, you want Sens tickets? Like, we get this on campus. We get this pretty easily. And then I said, oh, that's awesome. And then they're like, by the way, though, you're from Toronto, right? I said, yeah. And then they said, the arena's not in the city. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you can't take the bus there. Like, you can't take a close bus at least to get there. And then when I was looking, I'm like, wow, this is going to take me quite a while. And I as a traveler, I didn't bring my car. So
right.
I think already there, I kind of felt that I guess the ease of getting the tickets, like there's not that same demand I'm used to when we're in a city like Toronto. And second, it's just that, I guess that physical and physical and emotional closeness that I think the team needs to work on, that it's really difficult to get there physically. And then at the same time, if past players that a lot of young fans look up towards, saying, these are the legends of my team, why are they so distant from the team? Like, why do they not want to come back? Like, Alex, as a Leafs fan, what happens if Doug Gilmour one day is like, or Matt Sandeen's like, I'm not coming to any more Leafs events?
We had that for years.
We did.
Doug Gilmour and Matt Sandeen, but we had Dave Keon.
Yeah.
During the Harold Ballard years, just there was this disconnect.
And Daryl Sittler, yeah.
I was going to bring that up, and I think that's the first thing I would do is reconnect, try to redevelop the relationships with your alumni, because I do think in a sense that does, like you said, in terms of with your fan base. I think that very much helps reconnect your fan base. I think other organizations do it too. Like, and sometimes it's a little too much. But I think there is a sweet spot that multiple teams have found. And I think it just maybe, okay, bringing back alumni might not help the on ice product per se, but I think it does a hell of a lot in terms of community. And I think that's the most important thing right now for the Senators to fix, because I think they're all in a way connected. Like you said, they've drafted extremely well. They have plenty of guys. As much as we dog the Sens on the podcast, they have plenty of guys that look to have extremely promising careers in the NHL. And it would be a damn shame for it to not go the right way. And I think the first step is redefining the Senators brand from what it has been for the last few years, especially.
And I think there's hope there. And these are small samples, but I think a lot of the guys who are creating their core now are a lot more social media savvy, that you'll see Brady Tkachuk or you see Thomas Chabot actually be part of the community where they are now. And I think that if they could keep bringing that and making it like on a larger scale of things, I think that's reestablishing the culture and reestablishing the support that the Senators need and that they really did have for quite a while.
Yeah, no, 100%. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about the Melnyk article, the Ottawa Senators, before we move on?
To be honest, because we only talked about the hockey side of things from that article. So anyone listening, for all the other details that are going on with everything else, just check out the article. It's an excellent article.
Go read 100%. Go read the article. There are some things in there that are not nice. And I, in my opinion, kind of appalling, but
yeah,
again, like we'd be revisiting the same conversation again about Eugene Melnyk as the owner of the Ottawa Senators. So we got to move from one. We got to move on to the NHLPA review, the report that came out 5 days ago. Obviously, we didn't record on Sunday, so we did not talk about it yet. Obviously, after the Jenner and Block report came out about Kyle Beach and the Chicago Blackhawks and the absolute lack of anything that they did, the Blackhawks, the NHLPA decided to do an investigation on whether they did anything wrong. By the way, they did, despite the next conversation we'll be having. And they released it 5 days ago. And I just want to read the thing that they posted on Twitter, not the entire thing. Just, I want to read this little snippet because it's kind of egregious. Quote, the Cousin report determined that in sum, after a thorough examination of the contemporaneous record, the policies and practices in place at the union at the time, and the recollections of each of the parties to the contacts with the NHLPA or the SABH program, we cannot identify any individual wrongdoing, or institutional failures of policy or procedure by either NHLPA personnel or the SABH program concerning the handling of Beach's reports. And Beach's warnings about Aldrich were not addressed on account of miscommunication and misunderstanding rather than any individual or systemic failure. That they posted that on Twitter.
That's
You read the report.
Yeah.
I read the report. That's a lie. That's a blatant lie. That's a slap in the face. I'm sorry. I have other quotes from within it, but I want to start with you. What was that? Like, what was that report? Like, I'm stunned.
I think for me, it's just, I don't know. I don't know the amount of times I've said this about the league, about how things are going with it, where it's like they never fully address it, if that makes sense. They never actually say this is what happened or this is what we're going to do or so forth. It's just, maybe we just got lost in the miscommunication of things, or it's just a subtle way of saying that we acknowledge what you said, but we're not going to do anything about it. That we feel that this is just like not our responsibility. That I think it's something that I don't know. It's just it is really scary, to be honest. Like, if I were a player and I can't trust that I'm going to be protected in any way, or just reporting on anything. It's just this feeling that I don't know how to describe it. That it just, the whole idea of like things will just fall into deaf ears.
Yeah,
I really feel like that's how it is. No matter what with the NHL right now, whatever is coming up.
There in the report, they talk about like the phone calls and emails that happened not okay. Like, yes, they do not word for word describe the incidents that happen, but from the report, it does explain that within those, at least the emails, that it was mentioned that there was some not good things happening. I'm just pulling up this here. So Gurney, which I believe is one of the player agents, not Kyle Beach's agents, a different Black Ace. Gurney told us that he recalled describing Aldridge as either a quote pedophile or quote sexual predator in his call with Fear, but did not provide Fear with any details of what had allegedly transpired between Beach and Aldridge. It gets better. Fear denied having any recollection of the call, a position he has constantly maintained in both his few public statements as well as our interviews of him. In our interviews, Fair, an experienced lawyer, repeatedly made the point that if Gurney had either described Aldridge as a pedophile or sexual predator, or requested him to contact USA Hockey, he would have remembered it. Where do you want to start with those like 3 or 4 sentences?
I guess I don't know, like the part was like, oh, I don't remember it.
This feels like pure incompetence. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you have someone saying that in this phone call, I described Aldridge as a quote pedophile or quote sexual predator, and did nothing.
Like, I don't know how else you could describe, because those are pretty explicit words that you could call someone and not actually take it seriously like that is, I don't know. I'm kind of speechless right now on it, because when I first read the report and I first was looking into all the analysis too, especially from Elliot Friedman, it's just this feeling of like, it's just that same feeling we talked about again. It's just people wanted to cover it up, and yes, they resigned. Rocky Wirtz really told us about that during the team meeting. The GM resigned. Stan Bowman's gone, and like, I think that there was that opportunity here to fully address it by the NHLPA, and as of right now, it's just that feeling again where you realize it is a small circle. You don't want to do the quote unquote rock the boat with anything. And I don't know. It's just like when I feel like it's like you're tone deaf in a way where you're not looking at the writing on the wall of this is this is a big deal. This is a huge issue. Everyone else is speaking about it, but the NHL is still in its own sphere of things. Of this is how we do things, and you don't speak out.
Yeah.
We want to maintain this sense of identity that I don't really know what it is anymore, to be honest with the NHL. That we want to maintain what we are, and we can't have these quote unquote real world problems seeping in.
I 100% agree. And going back to that snippet I read, does it not? Okay, so first off, we're in agreement that just that part alone I read. This is a 20-page report, and I read you 3 or 4 sentences. What that was an individual or systemic failure? Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
That statement that the NHLPA put out is wrong.
Yeah,
they are liars. It's just a lie. It's a lie. And I want to say, and you tell me if you disagree or agree with me here, but Donald Fair, an experienced lawyer, was unneeded. And to me, it didn't sit right when I read it like that. In our interviews, Fair, an experienced lawyer, repeatedly made the point that if Gurney had either described Aldridge as a pedophile or sexual predator or requested him to contact USA Hockey, he would have remembered it. Really? That's what we're going to go off of, even though we have an email and a phone call. But because Donald Fair said it didn't happen, it didn't happen.
Well, that's really horrible due diligence right there.
I'm thinking, if I'm, again, this probably will never happen, but if I'm in his position and I have a phone call that says that, I'm on top of it 100%. I'm on top of it 100%. It honestly, it left me very uncomfortable. Not anywhere near the Jenner and Block report, because I think the Jenner and Block report was very, very detailed in terms of what actually happened, and I will never forget reading that report. This was completely different, and I don't think near that. But I just, come on, really? That's what you got from it? That there was no individual or systemic failure? How on earth could you say it? Like, how could you write that down, publish it? Oh, like, come on. I have so many thoughts in my head going at once, but because there was so much happened before and after it. Before the report came out, well, there was a power outage. Okay. You know, like what they did, right? Sorry, Daniel. I don't mean to ramble on. I'm gonna
this is excellent stuff. It's just like the power outage one.
Like the power, you know what that reminded me of? There'd be times during the pandemic where both the federal government or provincial government would casually throw something out around 5 p.m. on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Just late enough where not maybe not 5 o'clock, because that's still a reasonable time, but just late enough where some people would see it, but a lot of people wouldn't. And that's what that felt like, where at 10 a.m., sorry, we can't release this, but we'll release this at 4 o'clock in the middle of prime time driving sports radio. Are you really? That's when come on. I love Stephen Brunt and I love the guys on Overdrive, but they're not going to get to that because that's a damn detailed report. or they'll get to it, but it won't be the proper discussion it deserves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that took time to go through. And I think for everybody, including Westhead and including Friedman, and I saw other people write about it too. The power outage thing just was kind of ridiculous. Do you have anything to add about the 5 minutes I think I was talking?
No, like I think it's just when they do these things, I know that why they do it in terms of why they publish it, but I think for me it's just it just I don't know, it exposes it more of you're not handling this very well. You're not doing what you think you're going to do, because there are guys like you mentioned. There is a Rick Westhead out there. There is an Elliot Friedman. We're going to look into this, and there's going to be analysis on this report eventually. So I don't know. I think it is a time where, when I mentioned that sphere concept of what the NHL is in terms of blocking out all the outside noises with everything, I think that this might be bold or this might be incorrect, that we're in a time right now that the NHL can't hide anymore. That there's going to be a lot of voices that are continuing the conversation on this. I know it's not going to be monumental shifts in any way like we've seen anywhere else, but I think that there is a change there.
See, I do agree with you to an extent. It's just, I was going to bring this up later, but since we're talking about it now, I do want to get back to the report, because there was stuff about Donald Fehr afterwards in terms of the NHL players and stuff like that. So I do want to bring that up. But did you know that around the time, the Kyle Beach, I believe it was the report first came out, that Gary Bettman got a contract extension?
I remember that.
Do you? Because I didn't. I do not remember that at all. I heard about that last night on the Steve Dangle podcast.
I just remember the hubbub everybody had on Twitter about it, but then it was kind of, I don't know, it was just kind of like, it was just that. It was just the isolated thing. It wasn't one, it wasn't mixed in with anything.
It was completely thrown under, in my opinion. Listen, I don't know everything, but I felt that was thrown under the rug a little bit in terms of reporting on. And that's why, I do agree with you in terms of, yes, we will keep talking about this story, because I think this is a never ending story in terms of there's always stuff that's going to be coming out about whether it's Kyle Beach or whether it's someone else. And I hope not, but there's a very good chance that there might be someone else too. And I think there's really good reporters out there who are going to report on it. Rick Westhead, Katie Strang. I'm sure I'm missing loads of people. The local reporters in Chicago who were on this first, God, I hope there's local reporters in other cities that would be willing to do the same. But again, I just think the biggest guys, and so I don't want to disparage Rick Westhead. Rick Westhead is incredible at what he does, and he is a well-known hockey journalist, or investigative sports journalist. Sorry. But one is not enough. There needs to be more than just Rick Westhead properly reporting on this stuff. And I was ready to walk into this show today and say, wow, credit to X, Y, and Z on reporting on this. I saw, obviously, Friedman wrote about it. There was a few others I saw as well. But when I heard the Gary Bettman contract extension, I'm like, out the door. The credit's out the door. Gone. I'm not interested. Come on. You have to properly do this stuff.
I think, yeah, we mentioned it before, we always talk about small circles, when it comes to the higher ups with things, but like the NHL is probably the smallest of the smallest. I
Well, the
find
200
like,
hockey man.
yeah, that I don't know. You're not gonna if the guy still wants to do it, you're not gonna take out the ringleader. If the guy still wants to keep on going and be the commissioner, he dictates what's gonna happen. I don't know. Like I don't know. I'm thinking about it right now. Where you were right, there wasn't really much written on it. I just got the updates on it. I never
Right. Like,
got any like critical analysis on what does this mean for the game moving forward.
and I believe it happened during like an executive meeting. There's the 32 owners, but there's the executive owners. And I believe it happened during that meeting, and it's frustrating, right? Because the last, and I keep bringing this up, but whatever, the last 24 months have been very difficult for hockey, yet the people that I believe should be instrumental in exposing the problems aren't really doing that. Right? Like it's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's frustrating when that happens. Is there anything else about the Gary Bettman stuff before I just want to quickly finish up with the report?
Nothing really. It just I don't know. I don't I've said it before. I've said it like I'm not surprised he got the extension.
No.
I'm not surprised. Okay, two things. I'm not surprised he got the extension, and I'm not surprised that it happened behind closed doors. Very NHL like.
Right. And Daniel, we both know. Like a lot of more people knew about it than it was probably led on. Like, let's not forget Frank Saravelli broke every single expansion draft pick before it was on television. Like it's a small circle, but it's an open book.
Yeah.
And it's people choosing not to talk about it. That's what's slowing us down. And remember that report you sent us where it was like there was 2 maybe NHLers on the list of the most was it profitable
Canadian athlete. Yeah.
Really?
Mitch Marner is in top 10.
Yeah, but it's the biggest sport. It's supposedly the biggest sport in the country.
Yeah.
And all due respect to Alphonso Davies, definitely should be up there. But who was 2? Tristan Thompson?
Yeah, Tristan Thompson. And then Lance Stroll.
On. Like, okay, Lance Stroll, I get, Lance Stroll, I understand. But Tristan Thompson, Ridley.
I know.
It's frustrating. That's all it is. That's why I'm like this. I want to quickly go back to the report. Obviously, with the fallout of everything that happened, even before this report, there was a lot of questions about Don Fehr. I believe he's 75 or almost 75. And after this report came out, there were some questions about whether he'd still be on board and, what's this succession plan? And this was from Rick Westhead after the report. This was on the 16th, the day after. Hearing of divide among NHL players over report on NHLPA Executive Director Don Fehr. Some say Fehr exonerated, others angry over his "I have no recollection" responses. Will be interesting to watch whether Fehr, 73, sorry, not 75, is allowed to influence search for his successor as he plots an exit.
Okay.
Again, I don't know how you read the report. Like, if you're like this, if you're like not properly looking.
I don't recall. Yeah.
Oh no. Yes. Then sure. I understand why you think he would be exonerated, but minimal critical thinking skills would tell you otherwise. That's the frustrating. Like, how do you read that and say, we're good?
I don't.
We're good here.
Yeah.
Remember when Wayne Gretzky, and you kind of brought it up before, but remember when Wayne Gretzky said that stuff about Chicago on national television in the United States. He's like, I would want to know if my child is going to be safe or not. Guys,
oh my goodness.
Like, how does anyone not read that and then read this report and be like, I guess my child's going to be safe? Okay, I'll ask you a question because I've talked a little too much. What would you say if the report came out that Donald Fear is going to be heavily involved in his succession plan, in his successor? Sorry.
More of the same. I think, and this, I don't know if this is going to be accurate, but it does feel like it sometimes where when these things are brought up, there's this feeling where there are people, and we talk about, the 200 men in hockey, or we talk about the old time hockey fans, or we talk about hockey culture. When these things are brought up, I think that they really do get on the defensive on things where it's just these like, oh, that's an isolated situation. That's not hockey. That's not hockey to us. We have to maintain that this is our identity. Or if something is brought up like negatively, like, we talk about Tom Wilson a lot sometimes when he has those punches or those hits, and it, like, people with like, some old fashioned hockey fans would be like, oh, that's real hockey. But other times where there is a troublemaker kind of thing, like, I'll mention Evander Kane. I know we're going to talk about him after, but I'll mention Evander Kane. And what I see sometimes, and it's not everybody, but on Twitter sometimes you see, oh, that's not hockey. It's just a couple of bad apples, that these things happen, but that's not the sport. Don't look at the one thing and say, oh, this is it. We have our own identity we established and we're good with it.
Well, I think you're spot on there. And I think what sometimes because I think we bring it up quite often, but what sometimes people ignore is that, yes, these things are going to, whether there's rules in place or not, bad things happen. Bad things can happen. It's, do you have the proper rules in place to deal with when these bad things happen? And a lot of the times we find out in the NHL, the answer is no. And it's April 20th, 2022. That's not acceptable. Like, it's not.
I'm trying to, like, because we talked about the GTHL as well, that
right.
There's those situations going on. And listen, like, I know this, and I'm not saying every situation is the same, but like, there's just these things coming up that suddenly it's like, this is not like an isolated incident, that, there has to be ways to prevent these things from happening.
100%. And I really hope the NHL does something real soon. My guess it won't, but like, again, we got it. People have to keep reporting on it. That's how things are going to get done. Hopefully, it's going to be an interesting period the next few years for hockey, and especially the NHL in North America. This is a tough transition, but we're going to make it. I want to go from a really not great story to a really, really good story in my eyes, at least. And I think most people's eyes, on Saturday night, headlines, 32 thoughts. Damn it. It's not headlines. It's 32 thoughts. I'm sorry. I practice it. I swear to God, I practice it in my head like 3 or 4 times before I'm like 32 thoughts. Jeff Merrick on 32 Thoughts headlines, as I like to call it, announced about the PWHPA, and there's going to be a new league for the players within the PWHPA. There's going to be 6 teams within 6-team league in both Canada and the US. Right now, it's going to take place between January and April of 2023. There's going to be obviously 23 skaters per team. There's going to be a $35,000 minimum salary and $55,000 average salaries plus benefits. And it's going to be a 32 game schedule. He also said expect a new name for the league. So again, that's something we're still expecting. But we have been talking about women's hockey quite a bit, pretty much since the Olympics, which in my eyes is always good. What was your first thought when you saw this all unfold?
We talked about before how there was that collapse between the unification of the leagues, and we were just kind of unsure how things were going to be. Sorry. There's just been like everything's been in limbo, and we didn't know how things were going to go. But at least for now, I like that there's a framework of how they want things to go for this new league. That things might be rebranded, that they actually have the concrete details of what they want to do. And I think that's the first step in sustainability of growing women's hockey right now, with their own dedicated league that I think that hopefully also gets the amount, like the support it deserves. So for me, I think great first step so far, but I still want to see how everything else goes.
Yeah, and I think these next, let's say, a couple of years are going to be vital for women's hockey, and I think good things are going to come out of it. Like everyone who's been reporting on women's hockey, yeah, okay, there's been some bad things happening, but like I brought up the tweet I think from Danny Rodden last week that it seems like good things are coming, and kind of within 5 days we did hear about that. Again, like I know in the past I've been hesitant of two leagues, but I think the more I think about it and the more I read, the more I'm actually extremely comfortable with having two leagues, as long as there's a place for them to play hockey. I think that's a lot. Like as long as they're okay with the specifications of the league, as I guess we'll call it, that's fine with me, whether there's 1, 2, or 3 leagues, as long as there's a place for these women to play hockey, because I think it's important. I think it's better than saying, well, we'll see them in 4 years at the Olympics, or we'll see them once a year at the World Championships. Like that's not enough. That's really never been enough. But it's really not enough anymore. Oh, I think you're muted.
We've mentioned that I had to get that sip of water. We've mentioned that it is going to be only that 6-team framework, but again, like it's a good step in giving them a league to play in and something you could really grow on after. I like that point you brought up with the international play, because those are always exciting times that it's always kind of pushed, especially on like mass media, of women's hockey. Isn't it great? Aren't you having fun? Isn't it something that it's like kind of captured the attention of the entire nation and, you know, everywhere else internationally? Why can't we see this more often? Like, and I think that there are these concrete solutions coming up now with these leagues that they want to try to sustain that, because I think that it's just going to make it even better that now we have a more accessible platform to see these games. And then when things happen like a world championship, like an Olympics, that it's going to be even more special because we've been following these players like throughout the years, throughout their seasons, throughout their plays. We know them. We know who they are, and we just don't need those big platforms to just kind of know them for a few weeks and then we move on. We actually know the players.
Yeah, no, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And I want to move to another really good story. I mean, it's caused some issues with some teams in the past, but I think this is a really good story. Marc-Andre Fleury has been in the news recently. He told La Presse, a newspaper out of Montreal, that he would like to play at least one more season. The quote was, "I'd like to play at least another season. I decided that recently. I still like to play. I still have fun. The body still holds most of the time. But yes, another season, and we will see after." Now, my question for you: where do we see Marc-Andre Fleury in the 2022-2023 season?
It's pretty interesting because I think that it depends on what this guy wants, because Adam has mentioned before that he got the Vesna, he already has the cups, he has the gold medal. This guy is not gonna. This guy could just ride the waves and do whatever he wants right now. But we always have to remember, when it comes to older players, that they already have established family, their kids are growing up, and I personally think if he sees the vision the way we see it with Minnesota, I could see him re-signing there. The way I kind of see it is, he already moved the kids to the Midwest, to the Central with Chicago. Why not stay in the same division, stay in the same like vicinity of that area, and just don't uproot the kids again across the country? The Wild could surprise. They could give Fleury that one last chance of going for a run. We don't know how this year is going to go either. So, it really depends too on what Minnesota is going to do in the playoffs. They really addressed like literally their biggest need with Marc-Andre Fleury. So I could see him staying in Minnesota because of what he's mentioned before, when he was contemplating, he was contemplating retirement, or the reports where he was contemplating it if he left Vegas. So if he still has the desire to play again, and he's been great, he's been healthy, that's the biggest thing. I could see him doing one more year in Minnesota. The easy one would say Pittsburgh, what they want to do there. But, Tristan Jarry, pending how the first round goes, the playoffs for them, he's turned things around. So I think the Penguins are pretty content with what they have.
Well, Daniel, you stole my answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to take the Pittsburgh Penguins. Man, you just ripped my answer.
I'm sorry.
Apart.
Too many honorable mentions.
Listen, here's the thing. I looked at Minnesota. I said, okay, maybe. Like the thing with Minnesota is, they do need to. Who am I missing here? Sorry, they do need to re-sign Kevin Fiala, right? And I mean, that's obviously still up in the air. It sounds like it's probably not going to happen, is what everyone I've listened to kind of had said. It's still a possibility, but still, with $8 million in cap space, or nine, sorry, because the extra $1 million they now have, the $9 million in cap space, no, I'm not saying Fleury's not worth it. But again, the question is, how much do you trust Cam Talbot? Sorry. Mm-hmm. I just thought Pittsburgh, because, listen, Casey DeSmith is up after this season. Tristan Jarry has one more year. Who knows what's happening with Letang and Malkin. It's a possibility. It would be nice to bring them back. Imagine they signed all three of them. They re-sign Malkin, they re-sign Letang, and then they bring back Marc-Andre Fleury, and they do one big run together. It's probably unlikely, but it would be a hell of a story and would probably be really exciting.
It would be something we'd watch as a documentary series.
Oh yeah,
later on,
for sure. And if they don't re-sign Malkin, they can do what I suggested, which was sign Nazem Kadri, and then you bring in Marc-Andre Fleury, and then we're good. Like either way, I'm happy, man. But either way, but I think either team could use him. Do you think in Minnesota, do you think they trust Cam Talbot enough, or do you think that's something they're going, regardless with Fleury or not, is goaltending something they're going to address in the offseason?
I think they have to, because he's going to have one more year after this, right. Cam Talbot, and he's getting a lot older. He really turned things around for his career ever since he went to Minnesota. But again, there's a reason why you also got Marc-Andre Fleury at the deadline.
Yeah.
If you're not gonna fully trust a Cam Talbot, or you traded a Jan Kukkonen, Capo Kakkonen, away, who you didn't believe he was the guy. Jesper Wallstedt is great goalie, fantastic prospect, arguably one of the best goalie prospects, not in the NHL right now. And
have you switched your allegiances by By
No, I'm just being
curiosity,
fair, trying to make
you
sure that
gone
like
from Yaroslav Askarov to Jesper Wallstedt.
I
Have you
said
switched
one of the best,
allegiance?
one of the best. He's years away from really like being the guy there. I think especially the way teams are with goalies, there's a lot of cautionary stories there, but I could see him having the same path as a Spencer Knight, where you give him the games, but you don't fully give him the full schedule yet. And it'll be interesting to see what the Wild do there because they have to keep considering the money, and we have to see like what is Fleury really going to demand here? Is it going to be like to help out a contending team? Is he going to take like the minimum? Is he still going to try to say like I want to give that money? Like it's something that we'll see what happens there because I could still see Fleury like and it was a sad thing to see that we could see what Henrik Lundqvist tried to do when he was in Washington, maybe, where if you want to, I know it's different him because he never won the cup, but I don't know, like if things don't work out in Minnesota, things just are not the right fit in Pittsburgh. I could see him maybe taking less money and just be that like 1B guy on a contending team.
No, that's definitely enough. We have not answered the question.
We haven't.
We have said Minnesota. We went from Minnesota to Pittsburgh to, well, I mean, he could just sign with any contending team. Like, who knows? He might be Tampa Bay's goaltender next year, which I would absolutely despise, by the way. If he's anywhere near Florida next year, I will despise that ever happening. That's brutal for anyone in the Atlantic Division. Okay, so let's finish the show off with the Leafs. I don't know how, but I guess it's been almost a week since we've talked, but they've played 4 games. So there's quite a bit to go around. They've played 3 good games and they played 1 okay game is the way I look at it. Like the Sens game, I don't, again, I said it before. I don't understand. I don't know. Like, I don't have an answer. For some reason, there's like 4 teams. It's Montreal, Ottawa, Arizona, and Buffalo. It's just brutal every time. It's just, I hate to watch it because it's like, show up. Damn it. It's like, just show up. But the other 3 games, the Caps, the Islanders, and the Flyers, there were some things that happened. Matthews hit 100, and Matthews actually hadn't played since that Caps game. Bunting had snapped his scoring drought, and I think the thing that happened in the Islanders game, which I think a lot of people were talking about, was that they broke their wins and points record, which they set in 17-18.
How does it feel?
Cool. I had the same, I retweeted it and I wish I pulled it up, but there was an Alex Kerfoot quote where he's like, pretty much like, that's great, but like, it means absolutely nothing if we do not win. And I could not agree more. Like, it's cool. Like, the way I think about it is, when we go back to say, hey, remember when Columbus swept Tampa?
Yeah.
We're talking about Columbus sweeping Tampa. We're not talking about how they had 62 wins, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so I'm not trying to compare the 2 teams. I'm just looking at it as, if they do not win anything, cool.
Like, you know who actually said something about this? Kobe Bryant.
What did Kobe
talked
say?
about it when he's like, it doesn't matter, it's not done yet, because I remember they I think this was 2009, prior to the finals, they just won the Western Conference, and then he wasn't really celebrating. He's like, it doesn't matter, the job's not finished yet. And exactly. I exactly feel the same way with that, where I think that it's great, we've hit the milestones before with the regular season points. Let's just get to where we need to go now. And a week ago, we mentioned about how Sheldon Keefe was mentioning on this up and down type of play they had. And for me, like, this current streak they kind of have is something that I'm happy they addressed, that you work out the kinks before you get into the playoffs. Like that Sens game was weird game, thanks Mark Giordano. But the other games, they showed like what kind of team they can be. And mind you, the last two games have been without Austin Matthews, and they've really come together and been like a complete team. So I like the wave they're on right now. They're fixing the things they need to fix, and they're getting ready for the bigger games.
And I said it, I think when they lost to, I don't remember who it was. It was one of the teams. It was when we were together.
Was it Buffalo?
It might have been Buffalo.
Yeah.
Where it's frustrating because, again, let's look at, they played the Capitals. They played great. I thought it was a good game. And I thought it was a good game because, it's like the Capitals, and this happened against the Islanders too, where it wasn't a full-blown bloodbath, but it got a little physical. And in my eyes, when things get physical, it doesn't always go well for the Leafs. Like, history has proven that to us. And the fact that they were able to still stand and play the way that they wanted and were able to do what they do, to me, was a positive sign. But again, I reiterate this, it's the regular season. None of this matters. Like I've said this from game one. Like I've been saying this from the beginning of the season. None of this matters if they don't win. And I have some pretty lofty expectations. Unfortunately, it's just what happens. What
you deserve as a fan, Alex. You know what you deserve.
What I've been expecting for the last couple of years, I've just upped it. Because I'm like, what the hell? Like, this is what you're paid for, but that's fine. Where was I going to go? I lost my train of thought for a second there, but sorry, it's frustrating watching them play, Ottawa, the Sabres, the Coyotes, apparently the Islanders and the Flyers are fine, even though they're not great teams, but magically they play them okay, right? Like the Leafs, yes, they threw Jack Campbell out against the Islanders, but if you look in the past, like they've thrown their backup goaltender usually against the Islanders. Like I think Michael Hutchinson had a shutout against the Islanders. Joseph Wall. Did Garrett Sparks also play against the Islanders? Like, whatever. That's a weird team versus the Leafs. I don't know why, but like the Montreal, Ottawa, Arizona, Buffalo, it's just frustrating to watch them play like that. And then when they play against Tampa, Florida, Washington, Carolina, Boston, and they play so much better. That's frustrating. And I hope that they play the way they do against those teams in the playoffs, because that's what you're kind of going to need.
Yeah.
And since we're at the playoffs, unless you have anything else to talk about those 4 games in particular.
I'm going to use the same thing I said about the Carey Price return. I am just enjoying the streak. I'm enjoying the wave they're on right now, and I like how they're preparing for the bigger games.
I'm really glad you're enjoying because I don't know if I could say the same. But before we end the episode, this was Adam's idea. I want to do a little exercise.
Okay.
I'd like to do. I want you to do 20 jumping jacks. No, right. I'm just joking. I want to create in your eyes, the ideal playoff lineup. I have my lines. I'm very curious to know what your lines would look like for the Leafs.
Okay.
I'm completely throwing that on you last
Yeah,
week.
I know. It's okay.
I can go first.
First line, now go. First line doesn't change.
Okay. Yeah.
For me.
Bunting, Matthews, Marner.
Yes. I think at least for game 1, you go with the conventional. So you go with Tavares, Nylander, Mikheyev. Third line, I would say I would keep it with David Kampf as the center, Alex Kerfoot on the left, and I don't know, on the right, what would I put there?
Right now it's Pierre Engvall.
Yeah.
There now.
Because I like him as an energy fourth line guy, but I don't know. Like I'll probably stay with Engvall there. And then
Okay.
my fourth line would probably be Blackwell, Spezza, and Simmons.
Okay. So
Well,
forward wise, we have practically the same line.
Okay.
The only difference is I don't know, like ever since he had that injury last season, Simmons has just seemed completely off to me. He started really well with the Leafs, and obviously, yes, that was going to regress. But when he had that injury and he came back, maybe it's just me, but something has seemed completely off. And, when you bring in Kyle Clifford for future considerations, you feel a lot better about Kyle Clifford than when you trade him for pretty much like a third round pick. But
yeah,
for me, you have to have one of Simmons or Clifford in the lineup.
Yeah.
Personally, I lean a little more to Clifford, but I can definitely be swayed to Simmons' side like this. Or if Spezza is not really rolling, like that's kind of been Spezza has not looked fantastic this year. Hopefully, it looks like playoffs. Jason Spezza, like he's been the last few years but usually he's the only guy that shows up. I could be swayed to put Wayne Simmons on the right as well. But yeah, that's what my lineup looks like, the exact same, man.
Okay. I think we remember it where remember when they used to have the energy fourth line? Like the pure energy fourth line. These it was Nick
against
McCann.
Washington?
Yeah, Tyler Ennis. Like they would have those sets of guys on the fourth line that I don't, that's great. That's Kyle Dubas hockey, but it's just not playoff, like a playoff fourth line. I know I'm nitpicking with the fourth line, but if you want to add some toughness there, you want to add a character guy there, like you have to have a Wayne Simmons, you have to have a Kyle Clifford there. I'm not saying they're Colton or Fraser McLaren, but you need that element there.
Yeah, no, 100%. Okay, what do you have on defense? I imagine it's the exact same as me, but let's find out.
I'm probably gonna say Riley, Brody. I want to put that back together.
Okay.
Muzzin, Lyubushkin, Giordano, and Liljegren.
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't put Justin Hall.
Neither did I. Okay. I had it a little bit different than you, actually. Again, just flip Lyubushkin and Brody, but I have Riley, Lyubushkin. That's weird. Like unsurprised. Like actually, sorry, very surprisingly worked. When they traded Lyubushkin, I'm like, okay, that guy's going on the third pairing with Rasmus Sandeen. And sorry, Timothy, like you're kind of out of the lineup, but and then I have Muzzin and Brody. And again, let's say Muzzin's not healthy. I know he hasn't played the last few games. Take Muzzin out, you put Brody and Hall, which worked okay. And then you have Giordano and Timothy Liljegren. And I think with Giordano next to him, I think Timothy Liljegren has looked pretty good. I really can't complain. Okay, so obviously you'll notice we missed two guys who have been kind of staples in the lineup most of the season, which is Ondrej Kasha and Rasmus Sandeen. And I mean, personally, I don't think Kasha's coming back. If not now, he might come back later if they make it past the first round. It's just yesterday was his first time back on the ice since he's pretty much had a concussion.
Yeah.
And he was in a no contact sweater, and we're like less than 2 weeks away from the playoffs. I just find it hard to believe that Kasha would make a return, maybe in the first round. Probably, if anything, if he does come back, maybe in the second round. And with Rasmus Sandeen, I feel like I absolutely know nothing about his injury.
Yes,
so it's
here.
like, I mean, like again, it's the Leafs. Like they don't tell us anything half the time. So I really didn't think it was fair to put either of those guys in there. And I mean, with Rasmus Sandeen, that would make the defense so much more messy. I have no idea who would come out.
Yeah, same here. It's interesting because like it's like that idea again. Like you're not looking too ahead of right now. We're focused on ending the season well, focused on the first round and getting through it, and then we'll just figure out how the injuries go. But as of right now, I think the way the lines are, it's just the guys who are performing and the guys who are healthy. So
100%.
Go for that.
100%. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with the Leafs before I wrap this episode up? I'm going to double check Twitter.
All right, I'll check it too. But I'm surprised you didn't put Nicholas Abruzzese in the lineup.
Abruzzo Pizza. I mean, sorry, that's not nice. No, I mean, here's the thing. Like, and I know he's last night against Philly, he did look better than before. It's not right now. Right now, ain't it? Like, to throw that guy on the fourth line because he's not. Where is he making? Like, yes. Last night, Keefe absolutely scrambled the lines, which he's been doing against not great teams. But other than the fourth line, I just can't envision him anywhere else. And I just don't think it's fair to throw him. He's had 5 games of NHL experience. Who knew he might have closer to 10 by the time we get to the playoffs. To throw him in the complete fire of the NHL playoffs, where that we're not, again, like, remember, like you were talking about a few episodes ago when we were talking about Matthew Nyes, we're not like, he's not a top 5 pick coming out of college. Like, this is a guy who was drafted later on, and I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it helps. Who's it helping? I don't think it really helps the Leafs. Like, who you going to take out? Probably, if you're looking at it, Jason Spezza. Like I said, you need to have one of Simmons or Clifford there. And I'd rather have Spezza in there at this moment.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. Is there anything that we missed on Twitter?
Go Raptors.
Go Raptors. That starts in about half an hour.
Yeah.
By the time you're listening to it, it's probably over, but
we believe till the end. We believe
Always.
Until one team gets 4 wins. So
exactly. That's how it works. I like that quote. From Van Fleet. Okay. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of the 2-on-1 podcast. If you liked it, make sure you come back. And make sure, if you can do it on Spotify and you can do it on Apple Podcasts. Make sure to give us a rate. I don't know if you can do it on Spotify, but on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and you can watch us on YouTube, and you can watch us on Spotify too. So we will see you hopefully on Sunday, barring major things happening.
all right, bye guys.